kind of like one, but then another thing concerns me is we got video of you handcuffing this guy in the basement, was it?
No, sir, it wasn't in the basement. No, sir.
Okay, but you're handcuffing him around a pole.
It was inside of the shop, and it wasn't like what it appears, because he was actually the one wanting to be handcuffed, and excuse me, and he had the key.
Well, buckle up because we are about to take a wild ride for a Louisiana parole revocation hearing. In a nutshell, this guy's out on parole and his father is a bounty hunter. And well, apparently he tried to do some bounty hunting of himself, yet he's the one who ended up locked up. It's going to be a wild ride, so buckle up and let's go.
Yes.
And Mr. Couture is retained counsel.
Yes, ma'am, he is.
So we're ready to proceed this morning.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're accused of violating condition number 4 of your parole conditions. And it states that on April 25th, 2023, you were arrested by the U.S. Marshal Service for aggravated kidnapping and simple battery in New Orleans and booked in Orleans Parish Prison. On July 11th, 2024, you pled guilty to false imprisonment. So how do you plead to violating condition number 4?
Kind of confused. I guess I did get arrested, so I would be guilty of that. I guess I guess would be to say that I did get arrested, and I did plea out.
All right, so you plead guilty to the arrest, and I do say that you do have the plea to false imprisonment. Your case this morning has been assigned to Mr. Prater. Would you answer any questions he has?
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. Let me ask you, well, Madam Chairman, do I need to do this before we hear what his witnesses say?
Sir, I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and hear from his witnesses. And first, we'd like to hear from Mr. Migliore, Mr. Loretto Migliore. I think y'all are on mute still. There we go.
There I go.
Go
Yes,
ahead,
ma'am.
sir. Go ahead, sir. What would you like us to know?
I'd like to say my son has been locked up for 13 months because of this fabricated and fraudulent case that Mr. Singletary has brought against me and my son, because I revoked his bonds due to the fact that he stole my car toter trailer with the intention of fleeing to California, as per his accomplice has stated. During Signatary's stay here, he showered and had dinner at my son's house and was seen walking around my property on his phone. That doesn't sound like someone who was supposedly chained up with guns on him. Nevertheless, my only objective is to have my son home where he belongs.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much. Is Miss Jewel there with you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Terry, we'd like to hear from you, ma'am.
I just want to say that, since Jason came home in February, he and I have attended Narcotics Anonymous 3 to 5 times a week. We were going to do H&I at hospitals and institutions. He sponsors other addicts in recovery, along with myself. I sponsor other addicts in recovery. And he was doing really good. We were in the process of building our house, starting our business up, and we just would like to see him come home. That's all I got. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you. Mr. Couture, is there anything you'd like to add at this point?
Yes, if I could, just to clarify a few things. Mr. Migliore was arrested and retained me. Upon reviewing the evidence I discussed with the district attorney over 6 months, we got several witnesses to speak to the district attorney. He did additional investigation besides just the alleged victim's statement. In doing so, that's where the district attorney decided to reduce all the charges down to misdemeanors. At that point, we contacted probation and parole, advised them of the reduced charges. they agreed to allow Mr. Migliore to get out on bond. He got out on bond. He was placed on an ankle monitor. We then, of course, negotiated with the district attorney. And because of obviously the amount of money that this cost Mr. Migliore, he was just interested in resolving this matter. So therefore, upon having the opportunity for him to plead to a misdemeanor of false imprisonment without any violence against a person, we contacted probation and parole, where it was not advised that it would be a revocable offense. And he entered that plea for credit for time served. We notified the parole officer, received no communication whatsoever that was in any way not appropriate, until 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, he was called in for a check of his ankle monitor and subsequently arrested. He would not have pled if he was told that it was a revocable offense. We did state, I'm not sure if the agent who did the preliminary put that in the record that was sent to y'all, but we did notify them that if it was necessary, we would file for his plea to be withdrawn. However, Mr. Migliore has paid thousands of dollars over this incident. He has basically, he has tapped out. His business is auto paint. He gets some jobs, he does the auto paint, then he gets arrested. He has to give all that money back. He cannot earn any money. He then goes back again. He gets out on bond. He thinks things are going well, because obviously, why would they let him out if he was going to be revoked? He does everything he's supposed to do, starts up his business again, gets with his fiance. They start building a house, thinks he's resolving everything, and then again, he's put back in. His business is now over. He has to give all the money back for the jobs that he collected again. We are just trying to get to the best possible resolution. As you heard from the two witnesses, Mr. Migliore was doing very well. And I'm sure you have the entire file there. His issue was simply, he knew about this person who was a friend of his. He saw him at a location when he knew his father was going to surrender him. He notified his father. This person was taken into bondsman custody. At that point, as happens with a lot of times, don't surrender me. I'll make arrangements. I'll go ahead and get you the money. I'll get the camper back for you. I'll do this. And that's why the time happened. And so again, that's why after 6 full months of investigation, the DA knew this was not an aggravated kidnapping. This was not that of an offense, and therefore it was reduced. And it was only pled to because we thought that was the quickest and easiest way to allow Mr. Migliore to get back out and continue his life and his debt to society through parole. And I'll have some closing remarks after any other questions or whatever. Thank you.
All right, sorry. Mr. Prater?
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I've got some questions to ask.
Yes, sir.
When you saw this fella, Singletary, at the burger stand, and you knew he was wanted by your father to be surrendered, did you approach him?
Yes, sir. I called my father first, and I told him I was there where he was, and I approached him and I told him that my father wanted to see him.
Did y'all have to fight at that point?
No, there was no fight. I stopped him from getting in the truck. There was no fight, no fist thrown or nothing like that. He's like, Jason, we're friends. He's like, let's go inside, get something to drink. The person he rode with then left from there. We went inside to get something to drink, and that's when my dad and my brother arrived, and they took him into custody.
Why was there a 911 call from that place?
Because we was arguing. It was just an
Oh,
argument.
so it wasn't, hey, okay. Did you know at that time that the trailer had been stolen?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I knew it was stolen. There was a police
And
report made.
and you knew that Mr. Singletary was the suspect in the stolen trailer.
Yes, sir. I did. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you pull up at the burger place or whatever, you see Mr. Singletary, you know that he's a suspect in the trailer theft that belonged to your father. And then you knew that your father wanted to surrender him on this bond. What gave you the authority to do that? Do you work for your father as a bond?
I'm not a bondsman, no, sir. I've helped him with the business, but it's being on parole. I'm not supposed to do none of that, which I didn't know that, there was no fight. I just was like, I can't believe that you stole the trailer. When he started laughing about it, I was like, Mike, why would you do that? And that's all the argument consisted of. I told him I done called my dad. He's on his way up here. And he was, I guess, he looked like he was on something. So we went inside and get something to drink. It was only an argument. And that's when my
Yeah.
dad got there. And when my dad got there, I believe is when 911 was called. Is when my
And
dad
who-
got there.
You pled guilty to the simple battery, though.
No, sir. No, sir. Once
Okay, you were found innocent of the simple battery.
yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. And then y'all took him to whose residence?
My father took him to their office, which is at my dad's. His office is built above his house, and he has an
Okay.
office there to gather his paperwork.
So instead of surrendering him, y'all took him to your dad's residence / office.
Well, yeah, well, I guess my dad had to get his paperwork. I don't, and all of that. So that's where he keeps the paperwork and their bonds and all of that. They have to, you'd have to ask my father, but they have to go there, I guess, to get their papers for when they bond them out to,
Well,
return to jail.
I'm thinking y'all are a bondsman is under the same rules that law enforcement. We have to take them directly to the jail. We can't be stopping here and there, but I'm not sure of that, and that's not germane to what we're talking about even. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so you're not a bondsman,
No, sir.
but you acted kind of like one. But then another thing concerns me is we got video of you handcuffing this guy in the basement, was it?
No, sir. It wasn't in the basement. No, sir.
Okay, but you're
It was-
handcuffing him around a pole.
It was inside of the shop, and it wasn't like what it appears because he was actually the one wanting to be handcuffed, and excuse me, and he had the key. And then when you see the video, it's like 10 minutes later. I walked in there. I'm like, Mike, are you serious? And I threw him the key, and he undid it. And then I went and got us dinner and everything. It wasn't nowhere near what the police report stated or anything like that. That's why everything was reduced, dropped, simple battery was thrown out, none of that. And then I pled out to the false imprisonment because I just wanted it over with. Now, according to my attorney, I could have beat all of that if we went to court, but that's up to my attorney. I just didn't want to spend thousands and thousands of more dollars if I could plea out to something that didn't, if it didn't revoke me. I'm a different man today, sir. I go to meetings. I live a different life. I have a checkered background, and that's
Jason, you seem like a nice fella and all that, but in what world do you think this was okay to do? Especially knowing that he was a suspect. And let's be honest with you.
yes,
He
sir, yes.
became a suspect, and then the idea was to surrender him.
Oh, no,
Okay,
sir. My dad, I don't. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
that's okay. I want to hear, anything that you got to say. But in what world do you think that somebody on parole should be doing something like this? And then you move to the office residence in the garage or whatever, the shop area. And in what world is it okay for somebody on parole to be handcuffing somebody and he stayed there overnight? I've never heard of that before. I mean, that's dog bounty hunter kind of crap. I mean, you
Yes, sir.
can't you can't do that, especially if you're on parole and you're wanting us to believe this guy had the key and wanted to be handcuffed.
And he did. There's also audio. If they would have listened, if they listened to the audio, you could hear him in the background saying it. Look, I want your dad to feel comfortable. He was crying. He did not want to go to jail with another theft because he faced several thefts. He actually begged that please let me stay the night. And when my sister calls in the morning, I'll get her to send the money to cover the trailer. That way I don't get the trailer theft. And I was
Okay,
like,
so that brings up another interesting point.
yes, sir.
We are actually holding somebody until they pay for a trailer that they
No,
stole.
well, no, as a friend, as knowing him, I did it because I felt sorry for him. I didn't want to see him with another charge. I know the guy. I painted rims on his car and whatnot. I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. And for what my part of it is, and it's I did spend 11 months in jail, and I'm back in jail for another 2 months, I believe it is now. I have looked at my part. I do have a part in everything that happens in my moments and experiences in life. I'm not going to say I was totally right. I admit that I have my wrongdoing, and I feel that I paid that back, and I've learned a very valuable lesson. I just hope the parole board can understand, that I'm not perfect, and I am doing better, and I'm striving every day to make any wrongs that I've made right through life. I'm not saying I made every right decision that day, because believe me, maybe I didn't. I know I haven't, or I wouldn't be sitting here before the board today. I know I'm gonna make different decisions. I'm gonna continue with my recovery program. I'm gonna continue doing H&I. I'm gonna continue going to meetings, and I want to be there for my family. I see my wrongs. And sometimes, people do make mistakes, and I admit to that. But since that incident and since my times in jail, I've changed even more since then. So I admit to my part in any doings, and I've been in jail. I've got to look at it from all angles and both ends. So um, I'm not like I said. I know that I have a part to play in everything, and I'm not saying I was right in all my decisions.
All right, that's, Madam Chairman, that's all the questioning I have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, we see no other questions on the board. Mr. Couture, you want to close it out for us?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you. I think Jason put it perfectly. He understands that he made some mistakes. Jason is someone who, the type of person that I represent all the time. They're on parole, they're on probation. In the moment, his father is a friend of his, Mr. Singletary. He's known him for a while. He sees him at a restaurant. Hey, Mike, my dad's looking for you. We got you on video taking the trailer. Yeah, but yeah, help me out. Let me get you the money. Let me get you the trailer back. If he calls me, of course, I'm going to tell him, you can't be involved. Your dad should not take this guy to his house and hold him for 24 hours. Even if he's begging, let me get money, let me do this, let me pay you this, let me stay out on bond. Neither one of them should have done that in a perfect world. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where your dad runs a business. You can't be involved in it because of the parole, but you can call him if you see somebody. You see a friend, you can talk to your friend. You can tell your friend, my dad's coming. Do you want him to chase you? Do you want to just wait here for him? Well, I didn't, argument breaks out. They're talking, get a drink. That's what we have here. I was hired to explain, to find the witnesses, to find the people that helped him take that trailer, who of course didn't want to talk, but we got them to talk to the DA so that the DA would know this really happened, that these things happen. Ultimately, what I've spoken to Jason about and what we would like this committee to do is to find that since this is not a felony, that this is a misdemeanor, that this would be at most a technical violation. He has served, as he said, almost 13 months in jail for something that what all of the actions were by his father. His father took him to the custody. His father was the bondsman. The only thing I would point out, Mr. Prater said y'all took him back. Jason did not take him back anywhere. That was all his father and his brother, the actual bondsman. The only time Jason got involved was when he first saw him, and then when he was at the property. But again, that was his house. That's where his dad lives. That's where he was visiting again. But Jason obviously should have erred on the side of, I'm on parole. I can't have anything to do with anything, even though this guy's my friend, even though what I'm doing is good intention, I can't be involved in this. So therefore, we would ask that this committee either not revoke him, reinstate his parole, send him out, or find that it's a technical violation and give him credit for the time that he has already served. Thank you.
So, when was Mr. Migliore detained? My record shows July 26th of this year.
That's when he was detained after his plea. He was originally detained April 25th, and Jason may remember, were you bonded out in January of this year? March of this year, he bonded out. So from April of 23 to March of 24, he was then out on his ankle monitor until July 26 because he entered his plea on July 11th.
Thank you for that clarification. I think we're prepared to vote. Mr. Prater?
Ma'am, I don't think there's any way this is a technical violation. I'm not sure, but I don't think it is. And, you know, I'm not going to lecture you, but you make bad decisions, you end up in prison. You do good, make good decisions, and you're allowed out on parole. And then with a microscope or a magnifying glass, we look at the decisions that you make to see while you're on parole, if in fact you should be out on parole. There are so many, or there's such bad decisions here that anybody could recognize. Now, I want to make it very clear. I don't like a thief. I don't like this fella, that the fact that he stole the trailer, but there's so many wrong things about somebody that's on probation that I can't overlook this. My vote is to revoke.
Mr. Freeman?
You know, first off, you're a fifth felony offender. Don't even try to look at me. I've been in probation, parole for 35 years and tell me you didn't know you shouldn't have been doing what you were doing. I mean, you don't handcuff anybody. And this isn't even close. My vote is to revoke.
I do concur with my colleagues for all the same reasons. I find him guilty of violating the conditions of his parole, and my vote is to revoke his parole. Thanks for participating.
Excuse me, ma'am. Do I get all the credits that I've been in jail?
That's gonna be a question for them.
Okay, so let's just start with that hot mic. At the end, he was asking, well, do I get the credit for the time served? And if he had asked the parole board and they chose to answer, they would have said, we don't calculate time. And that's true, as it states here in the parole contract, that the only department that has the ability to calculate time would be the Department of Corrections. So she told him, oh, we don't know. They know, but the truth is they don't know. It is the DOC that has to provide it. We've seen mixed messages. We've seen it where they say, yes, you get credit for time served. I've seen that, but I've also heard situations where you don't. And that's why we've had those just plead guilty and serve their time out. So I don't know. I've heard both. I do believe that you get credit for time served while you're in between this limbo place. But let's just jump to the bottom line with how wacky this parole hearing was. I mean, first of all, I love the sheriff. I just do. He's so funny the way he talks about it and the questions he was asking and the words that he's saying. I mean, what was it? He brought up that TV show That was just too funny. I mean, you can't make it up. It's like we have video footage. You handcuffed him, and it was like he didn't realize when he's at this revocation hearing that was going to be brought up. So he starts coughing, and he's like, "Oh no, it was all part of a game. We cuffed him, but he always had the key. When I came back, I was like, oh, what are you doing there?" It's like, wow, when you just have nothing to say, and you just it's just crazy. The whole idea that he ends up handcuffing this guy, and like Mr. Freeman actually kind of said it best, and he said it sternly, and Mr. Freeman really has been coming out of his shell this year. I've thought about all the different reasons why. It could be that Miss Jackson and Mr. Mirabella were just a different kind of level to him. Maybe he looked up to them. He also came in more as later in. They were already there. Now he's more the senior role. He's feeling more comfortable. I don't know. Whatever it is, he has come out of his shell, and he came down with a mic drop, and he's like, don't even be, come on. You're a fifth felony offender. You can't handcuff anyone. What are you doing? And for real, what are you doing? It starts off with this power trip that he's in, and his father must have been. So, I mean, his father, I'm sure his whole life, the irony of it, of course, being a bondsman, is how many times he had to bond his son out. And then all of a sudden, probably to get this information that there's a man cuffed in his basement or something. It's like, are you kidding me? Then they get him the lawyer. The lawyer, he did, I guess, as good of a job as he could have at the beginning. But as Richard pointed out, and I agree, the final statement trying to get them to say, oh, yeah, it's just a technical violation. Yeah, to handcuff someone, it's just a technical violation. And in the parole contract, they do list like what technical violations are. So it might be not checking in, right? It might be like that could be a technical violation. And there are like fixed rules. Like you don't get fully revoked for technical violation. It's like the first offense can be like 7 days in jail or something. And chances are no parole officer will give you a first offense, right? And then it kind of builds from there, how many violations you get, and it goes up higher and higher and higher. Or when you do something serious, it's not a technical violation anymore. It's it's messed up. And man, it was just a weird case, kind of like like a movie. It just felt like a movie. And also with the attorney, the big mistake again, and we see this over and over and over again. And I don't know if it's attorneys being absolutely lazy, or if it's like a fallback excuse. Like they make the decision and hope for the best, and then when they're in front of the parole board, they just use it as an excuse where they say, well, we assumed if we just pled guilty, then we'd get away with it. But it only takes a Google search, like a few minutes of Googling it, assuming that they had no attorney that was an expert in the matter that they could call. A few minutes of Googling, it would tell you that you cannot, the parole contract is so vague. All it says is you cannot be involved in any criminal activity. That's it. You don't need to have a conviction. And oftentimes there are not convictions because the DAs know the law. They don't need to waste time prosecuting you. They know that you were arrested, the parole board's notified, you're being detained or retained or whatever, locked up, incarcerated until your parole revocation hearing, and you can get revoked just for getting arrested. And that's how vague the contract is. So when we see these attorneys over and over and over again, advise their clients that don't worry, just take the misdemeanor plea of false imprisonment. No, that is patently wrong advice. And these attorneys should be held accountable, because imagine your freedom's on the line and you retain an attorney and they give you this wrong advice. It's like a pet peeve, and we've seen it for 4 years straight. For as long as we can watch these parole hearings, we've seen it happen. It's like every revocation session, you hear it at least a couple of times, if not more. There you go. What was the attorney? What was the bounty hunter he was referring to? Who is that guy with a TV show? It's such a. How many of you watching this like that stuff? It's not my thing, but I get it. I get why some of you might like it. Anyways, I don't know. I feel like there's 10 more things. Oh, what was he initially locked up for? Right. We do have that. Thank you, Sir Richard, for sharing it. Basically, he has a lot of felonies for like distribution and stuff. And there's one here. Let me see if I can share this with y'all. This is his lockup picture. And then, Richard shared me some other accounts of his, but I don't know if it's YouTube friendly. But he's playing the part of like a gangster, flashing different signs in front of sports muscle cars and blah, blah, blah. And it's like nothing a dad would be proud of. And it's not like these pictures when he's 20 years old. They look somewhat recent. So, it's like some people never grow up. But they caught him. Let me just read it to you. It was like a classic sting operation. They pulled a bunch of cars over on the highway and they make it seem random. And all these cars had like large amounts of narcotics in it. And he was one of those cars. So obviously someone's saying. And it happened, not so long ago. So, 2017, they pulled him over and he was with a young passenger. Let's see. So he was 44 at the time. She was 26. They pulled him over and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And they said they saw drug paraphernalia in the car, which they admitted to. So that gave the deputies a reason to search the car. They found a pound of methamphetamine hidden in a speaker box in the trunk, as well as Pepsi, the E, and other paraphernalia. And a pound, I can imagine that's not something great that you want to be caught with, a pound of meth. That's methed up, as they'll say. So he, and you would think you might get much more time than that, but they got, I don't know when he got paroled initially, but this was in 2017, and now here he is, revoked again. And we might see him again for another parole hearing, depending on how much time he's backing. He might be able to apply for in 2 years. I'm not sure. Oof. At some time you got to grow up. But with that, let's jump into the next parole revocation hearing.
Yes, I would like to say that I'm sorry for messing up, and I do understand the reason why I'm here, and I hope y'all understand. I really try to take care of this situation, but I couldn't do nothing at the time. Like I have no health support system. Nobody try to help me go see my parole officer. Nobody try to help me pay my phone bill. Nobody try to help me get money for rent. Nobody try to
Well,
help.
all that's on you. You can't necessarily rely on others. That's all on you.
That's correct.
We are about to watch the parole revocation hearing of a man who was paroled in 2019 and this just disappeared. He absconded to Texas, never made phone calls to his parole officer. He just fell off the face of the earth. Louisiana tracked him down, dragged him back here, and now he's up for a revocation hearing. His fiance shows up and hopes to persuade the board to let him free, to give him another chance. How will it work out? Well, let's find out.
All right, good morning. Mr. Banks, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number. I think y'all are on mute still, maybe?
Ma'am,
Yes. Would you tell us your name and your DOC number?
Ryan Leo Banks, DOC number is 585-472.
Did you say Ron or Ryan?
Ryan Leo Banks.
Because I think we have you as Ryan, but I think your name is correctly is Ron.
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay, let me introduce us to you. My name is Cheryl Renatza, serving as chairman of your parole panel this morning. Seated next to me is Mr. Pete Freeman, and you see Mr. Steve Prater there on your screen. He's joined us remotely. We're here. Do you have a revocation questionnaire there with you?
Yes, ma'am.
That's your signature at the bottom of that page.
Yes, ma'am.
So based on that information, sir, it was determined you're not eligible for appointed counsel. So are you ready to proceed with the revocation hearing this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to acknowledge that your girlfriend, Wendy Knapp, is also here with us on Zoom, and she's asked to speak on your behalf, and we'll ask her to do so at the appropriate time. First, I'm going to read the allegations against you, and I'm going to ask you to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, and then we'll have a conversation about it after we hear from Ms. Wendy. Mr. Banks, you're accused of violating the conditions of your parole, specifically condition number 2, and it states you failed to report to your supervising agent since August of 2022. Your agent has made numerous attempts by phone, residence visit, and mail to make contact with you and was unable to do so. How do you plead to violating condition number 2?
I plead guilty for a reason.
Guilty with a statement, and we'll get
Yes,
your
ma'am.
statement.
I wasn't.
That's okay. We're going to ask you about it in a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Condition number 9, and it reads you absconded on or about August 10th, 2022. Same thing. Agents made numerous attempts by residence check, phone, and mail to make contact with you. Electronic records check on June 18, 2024 indicate you had an address in Texas. So how do you plead to violating condition number 9, absconding?
Guilty with a statement.
And the last one is you have failed to make a single payment towards your supervision fees. You're currently $3,719 in arrears. How do you plead to violating number 10?
Guilty with a statement.
Okay, and we'll get your statement in a minute. We want to hear from Miss Wendy Knapp first. We did get your several letters from you, Wendy. So what would you like us to know today?
Hi, I just wanted to reiterate essentially, wanted to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today in support, and just sincerely ask that you consider granting him the chance to continue his journey of growth outside of incarceration. I would say, over the past year and a half since I've known him and we've been together, he has grown incredibly, I would say, professionally and personally. He's worked really hard to turn his life around. He's made so much progress. I'm so proud of him. And it really would be devastating to watch all of his hard work and dedication go to waste and for him to have to start over. And so I do acknowledge that he's made mistakes and messed up in the past, but I am confident that if he is given this opportunity, he will continue to grow and contribute positively to his family, to the community, and that he would make the most out of this second chance.
So, Ryan, your case has been assigned to me, so I would like you to plead guilty with a statement on all accounts. So tell us, what is your statement?
My statement was basically I was forced to leave. I couldn't pay no rent, couldn't keep my phone bill on, no job because of COVID-19 was going around. I didn't have nowhere else to stay. The person I was staying with basically put me outside, basically homeless. I couldn't pay nothing until I moved to Texas and got a job as security. I got my Social Security, my driver license, my birth certificate. I was getting back to a normal person. I got my kids I was looking out for. I couldn't do nothing at the time when I was staying down here. I was basically forced to leave. I had no help support. Now I'm at the time of my life, I got help support. I could communicate. I could pay the parole fees. I could visit. I could do whatever it takes to get this done.
So, when I look at the record, Mr. Banks, I see that you're a third felony offender. Now, who lived at the arrest on Peoples Avenue?
My mother.
And what happened? You said that's the address on your release certificate. You were not staying there initially?
I was staying up, but they had moved. I had got my parole moved to my grandfather's house. I couldn't stay with my mother and them. We had too many people staying in the house. I had nowhere to stay there.
So why did you get put out? You said you got put out. You didn't have anywhere to go because you got put out and nowhere to go. Why were you put out?
The landlord sold the house, so my mama didn't have nowhere to stay at the time neither, so she wound up going somewhere. We wound up moving separate ways. The landlord sold the house while she was renting it, and I went with
Right.
her.
She said you moved from your mom's and you went to the grandfather's. So
Yeah.
he put you out?
Yes, ma'am. I
Why
couldn't
did-
afford to
why-
pay half. I'm sorry.
Why did he put you out?
I couldn't afford to help him pay the rent. And I
Alright.
had promised him I would pay
So
him.
you said the reason you didn't have, you were homeless and you couldn't do anything, you had no support system because it was in the middle of COVID, but according to what I see, it looks like you absconded in 2022 and we were done with COVID then. We weren't in lockdown anyway.
Oh, well, that was the last time, then when I got put out around that time, COVID, that I was basically homeless, so I didn't know how long it was going on for. I'm sorry. But I didn't leave purposely. That's the honest truth.
All right, so it seems to me you started avoiding, it's clear you were avoiding your responsibilities for supervision. It's clear to me. And it looks to me like you started avoiding supervision. Ms. Knapp said you and she have been together about 1.5 years. So that's when you really started actively avoiding supervision, around the time you got together with her. Now, her information that she submitted indicates that you were informed in November of last year, November 23, somehow Texas police advised you of a Louisiana warrant and y'all came to Louisiana and tried to straighten it out, figure out what was going on. Now you're a third offender. You knew, she may not have known, but you knew that you just needed to call your parole officer. I think you were out of New Orleans district. I'm not sure where the detainer was. I'd have to look, but you knew that you just needed to call your parole officer. Why didn't you do that?
Correct. I called, and knew my parole officer at the moment. I had called New Orleans and they said they didn't see nothing on me. So when I tried to contact the parole officer, they said he had wound up quitting and they had given me another parole officer that's out here in Covington, Louisiana now. It's my first parole officer, I only met him one time. And after that, he just went MIA. But I have no phone for him to call me. And the address I was staying at, he ain't come visit me. And after I left, then when I guess he was trying to contact me. But I was trying to take care of this. When I was out, as you know, in 23, I called New Orleans. They didn't see where the warrant was coming from. If they would have told me it was out here, I would have came, got the situation situated.
And you're a third offender. You know the rules of supervision.
That's why I was trying to clear this up. I ain't know nothing about Covington because I was in Bogalusa and they tell me that's Washington Parish. I ain't know about Covington or St. Tammany. I have no idea about this area. I was trying to take care
So
of that.
tell us about your employment. You said you were working.
Yes, ma'am. I'm a head chef. I create my own hot sauce and I do security. And I work at I'm the head chef in meats, seafood, and grilled in Galveston, Texas, and Jamaica Beach.
We did get a letter from the employer. And I will say this, I don't see anywhere where you got in any additional trouble. No new arrests. You know, you didn't, obviously were not involved in illegal activity. These are some of the things I'm concerned about. You know the rules.
Yes, ma'am. That's why I'm trying to take care of it. I'm sorry.
You have never paid one thing on your fees, even though you were released in 2019 and you absconded in 2022. Now that was during COVID. I can understand some of that, but you never attempted to pay any of your supervision fees and you knew that responsibility. Then this happened and it cost the state over $3,500 to extradite you back to Louisiana.
I could definitely pay everything I owed at the moment, because at that time I didn't have nothing going on. I ain't know, couldn't get a job. I couldn't pay a phone bill. I couldn't pay rent. But now I can pay my parole fees, everything I owe. I got a phone that stay on, and I can always communicate or visit how I was worried. Now I'm at the time of my life that I can do everything I can do what I couldn't do at the time.
So let me ask you this. Do you have any immediate family members in Texas?
No, ma'am.
So the only way you can go to Texas is by the rules, and that's with the interstate compact. And they don't accept you unless it's a family member. You have to be with a family member. So I'm not sure how that's an option for you at this point.
That's understandable. I got my mom, she's staying in Mamou, Louisiana now. In Mamou, Louisiana.
In Mamou, you said?
Yes, ma'am. Mamou, Louisiana.
So what's your plan?
If I got released, I will move to my mom's house until I gotta figure out about the Texas address. So I can get back to continue working and continue taking care of my family.
All right, I'm going to defer to my colleagues for their questions. Mr. Green?
Okay, first off, Mr. Banks, you know, if you, what Ms. Renata is saying is that you do have to apply for interstate compact to go to Texas.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm like her, they highly likely not to accept it because it's not immediate family member. But being that you have employment and you do have your fiance there, they may consider. I don't know. The bottom line is that you got to report to the probation officer. You got to keep up with them.
Yes, I understand.
You know, I think you have a little help now with your fiance. Maybe she could keep you straight and make sure you do all of these things. But the bottom line is to be successful, you're gonna need to be with her and with your kid. So if you go to your mom's, you still have to apply for interstate compact. That is an alternative that we can think about. You did have no criminal violations, but as stated, you did know the rules. I mean, you should have done better than you did.
Yes,
So
sir. I'm sorry.
no further statement.
Mr. Prater?
No questions?
All right, Mr. Banks. Anything else you'd like to say to us?
Yes, I would like to say that I'm sorry for messing up. And I do understand the reason why I'm here, and I hope y'all understand I really try to take care of the situation, but I couldn't do nothing at the time. Like I had no health support system, nobody try to help me go see my parole officer, nobody try to help me pay my phone bill, nobody try to help me get money for rent, nobody try to
Well,
help
all that's on you. You can't necessarily rely on others. That's all on you.
That's
I
correct.
think we're ready to vote, Mr. Banks, and let me tell you, because there's no new criminal activity, my vote would be do not revoke, but you have to go to your mom's
That's
to work out your interstate compact to Texas, and hopefully they'll approve that. And I will add as a requirement that you do pay the cost of extradition.
Yes, ma'am.
And work out a payment plan for your fees. And then you can work out a plan to catch up on your fees and keep those current. But within 6 months, you need to pay the cost of extradition.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, there's a process to go through the interstate compact, and it depends on how the vote goes today. But your new parole officer near Mamou will be able to help you work through them. That's my, Mr. Freeman.
Okay, Mr. Banks, I agree with Ms. Renata. No new criminal violations. You seem to kind of be heading in the right direction right now. This could be your last chance. So you need to, when you get out of there, you got to call New Orleans and go to New Orleans because they got to initiate a transfer to Mamou.
Yes, sir.
To get you the probation transferred down there. And then the minute you get there, start interstate compact to Texas, because that's going to take about 30 to 60 days minimum.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is it. Last chance. My vote is not to revoke, to go to Mamou.
Mr. Crater.
Sorry, I've got to vote to revoke. On behalf of all of the parole and probation officers that chase people around, you've been out for 2 years. We didn't know where you were. 2 years. 2 years you didn't pay anything. 2 years you didn't keep up with us. And now you're blaming others for not having given you the support to do that. It doesn't take a home. It doesn't take anything to make a phone call. and there's jobs out there to be had. And there were jobs out there to be had for the 2 years that you were absconding from what you were supposed to be doing. So I'm sorry to tell you this, Mr. Banks, my vote is to revoke you. I would revoke you if it was up to me.
That's understandable, but I definitely tried everything I could.
All right.
No,
all right.
sir. No, sir. I don't want to hear that. You didn't try everything that you could do.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Banks, you've received 2 votes to revoke your parole, 1, as you've heard, from Mr. Prater to revoke. So the majority is do not revoke, so we will, that's the decision today, do not revoke, and you've heard those stipulations. And as Mr. Freeman said, this is it, no more chances.
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
You definitely
luck.
understand that.
All right, I'm just going to start off by apologizing that I can't bring anything meaningful to this parole hearing. So there's no information that Richard was able to uncover. I got nothing. I don't know what he's in for. I don't know what time he was backing, how much. We just have what we have, what's here, which probably means that he's not in for anything too serious. But that's also not necessarily true. We've seen plenty of times when you can't get information on these cases. So where do I go? Where do I start? I mean, for one, he's sitting there basically at the end blaming everybody else. He's 33 years old. And he's saying, well, no one helped me. No one helped me with rent. No one helped me with my phone bill. No one helped me with anything. It's all everyone else's fault. And really what the sheriff came down to, man, the sheriff got a mic drop there at the end. You just had to make a phone call. You could just make a phone call. And it's interesting they brought up the fees to extradite him. In Utah, it's like mandatory when there's extraditions, they list it there, what the fee, and it's a lot of money that they charge when you get extradited, and the inmate's always held responsible for it. We don't see it often when it's brought up as a point in Louisiana that they're held responsible for that fee. And it was interesting. The sheriff didn't want to have any of it, and Mr. Pete Freeman, who's like a senior official at Board of Paroles for like a bajillion years, he would have experienced this many times. He was okay with the parole. The fiance thing, I just don't get it. I said this a million times. I'll say it a million more. I don't understand. There's, so many fish in the sea. Why are you going to lock yourself up to a 3-time felon? I just don't get it. Can someone, I've said this about people who are with life sentences, and I had a couple of you write to me and say, hey, Mandu, I'm in a relationship with someone who has a life sentence, and this is why. And I've seen documentaries on it, and there's a part of me that I can understand it, and I'll tell you why. And from what people said, it's like a safe, there's a few reasons that they said, but it's like a safe place. The person's locked up for life. And there's something that's appealing to someone about that, and I gotta get that. You know what you're getting. Other things that they found very appealing. These are the women that have emailed about why they are in a relationship with someone who really doesn't have a real chance of getting out. Is they just feel a certain trepid connection that you can't get anywhere else. So much of the relationship is through letter writing, and someone who's locked up that can only write letters can become good at letter writing, and there's something there. But to have someone who keeps going in and out of jail and prison, and all the strings that come with a felon, it's like, why? Relationships are hard enough just as they are. Why do you need to throw in all of this? I don't know. I don't get it. Call me, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if she tried to pull a quick one by using his same last name in her thing, but they caught on to that, but that's a little bit weird. In the Zoom call to use the same last name. What else can I say? I have nothing else to add to this. We'll keep track. If he does well, if he doesn't, we'll let you know, and we'll put him in the return of playlist. But we're going to jump into another revocation hearing. So with that, let's go.
So officers found you hiding in a shed?
It was a storage center, Mr. Freeman, like a Like how it has a runner home where you could store a washer and dryer at.
Yeah, okay. And you say you hid that because you knew you had warrants out for your arrest that you had tried to take care of?
Yes, sir. When I was at the address while I was staying there with my baby mother, um, she she was things was getting out of hand, and I ended up leaving. But the police were swarming in the area, so we had a guy that I knew in the neighborhood, the one that signed the affidavit for the firearm. He was like, what's going on? I was like, I got some stuff I'm trying to resolve, but the police in the area looking for me or whatever. And I was like, I need a duck off. Plus it was raining. So I went under the car porch, and then he was like, you could go in there. He was like, why I go see what's going on? When I went in there, I ended up getting found by the Lafayette Police Department. And they put me in the back of the pursuit car, and they asked me some questions about the charges with the domestic and stuff. And I told him I was aware of it. That's why I hid in there. And he asked me, it was like was I was gonna get it resolved or whatever. I was like, yes, sir. That's why I try to run or whatever, because I didn't want to get caught for that. Then they went to search the area. Then they came back and said they found a firearm, but I had no knowledge of the firearm being found, where it was. I didn't even know where the gun was found. I just know that they booked me on a firearm. And later on down the line, the guy who the firearm was for, that stated in the affidavit that he signed that I had no knowledge of the firearm and that was his firearm. And when he left, he thought I stole it, but he realized I was in jail, so he signed the affidavit. That's how my charges ended up getting dismissed, Mr. Freeman.
So you knew about the gun because he thought you had stolen it. Is that what you're saying?
No, sir, that's not what I'm saying. He's saying when he's I don't really know about the affidavit. I just know that my attorney said that he stated that he left the firearm in the area, and he thought that I had stolen it because I was going and his gun was gone. But when he realized I was in jail and he got in touch with me over the screen, the Zoom, he called me on visit. We get a free 45 minutes every Sunday. And he ended up calling me on visit, and he let me know what was going on. And I told him, I'm like, man, they charged me for a gun that I had no knowledge of. And he said he was gonna sign the affidavit. So I don't really know too much about what he said in the affidavit, but I just know he got it certified, he stamped it and approved it and gave it to the DA and the judge, and they dismissed the charges. So no,
Okay,
I did not have no knowledge of the firearm, Mr. Freeman.
okay. Let's talk about when they came to arrest you. They were telling you to show your hand and you were unwilling to do so. When they attempted to detain you, you charged at the cops fighting to run away. They ended up having to tase you. What was all of that about?
Now, yeah, absolutely. I did have my hands up when he told me to come out with my hands up. I had my hands up, but I did try to flee, Mr. Freeman, because I didn't want to go to jail, because I'm knowing the situation dealing with my health conditions, with me fighting cancer. I didn't want to go to jail and get a hold put on me, knowing that I was supposed to get these charges resolved with my baby mother. So I did try to flee, and yes, he did tase me.
Okay. And it just says that they discovered that Mr. Collins has a 9mm handgun. So, but I don't see the arrest report to say exactly where it was found.
Yeah, I never had no knowledge of a firearm, never heard about it, never seen it. I don't know what kind of gun it was, where it was. I didn't know nothing for a firearm. I told them to DNA test me, to run a swab, but they never ran my Miranda rights, and then they just brought me to jail. They booked me in, and that was it.
Okay. And have you been to court on these charges? What did you plead?
I never made a plea. They dismissed them, sir.
They dismissed all the charges?
Yes, sir. They dismissed the firearm, the simple robbery, the domestic, resisting the officer, and trespassing. They dismissed every last charge, Mr. Freeman.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Prater, you have any questions?
So, Mr. Collins, I'm concerned about the gun. That's the
Mhm.
main thing. You ran from the police and you hid in a storage building. How
No,
large? Go ahead. How large was it?
Um, it's like It originally like a storage. It's a storage center under the car porch. It's like it's under a car porch.
Under a car porch?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm a little confused. Is it big as the room that you're in right now?
It was a little bigger than that.
A little bigger than that. Was there a bunch of stuff in there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and there was a piece of plastic on the floor, correct?
I don't really know about the plastic being on the floor. So all I know is when I saw the police swarming in the area, I just went in there and I was really trying to stay from by the window so I wouldn't get seen. I didn't really even look around. I just know it had a hot water cooler, had the wash and dries and stuff in there, and a lot of the bags and blankets and stuff. I never really seen like everything that was in there. I wasn't even in there too long. Like as soon as I was in there, they swarmed in there and came and got me. I probably wouldn't even know in there no more than a minute.
There was a piece of plastic on the floor and there was a Glock underneath that plastic. That seemed a little strange, and then you resisted arrest. I mean, like I tell everybody, part of being on parole is seeing how you can abide by the rules and stay out of trouble.
Yes, sir. And I respect that absolutely, Mr. Prater. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be a statistic and get violated for some stuff that I didn't commit and something that I did not have. I understand how it's looking, but absolutely, I did have no knowledge of no firearm, Mr. Prater. I was walking a narrow path. I just got caught up in a bad situation. I know how it looked, but no, I did not have no firearm. I did not know about no firearm. I didn't know the person put a firearm in there. You know, when he got in touch with me, he even stated that in the affidavit. I don't really know how much what he said, but I can't really even tell you too much. I know how it looked, but all I was trying to do was taking care of my business with my kids, my responsibilities on parole. I wouldn't trying to waste my time. Like I want to prosper and get a job and get things situated for when I just come off the time that I just recently did, Mr. Prater. Like I have no knowledge of that firearm being in there. I had no knowledge of the firearm at all. Like I didn't touch no firearm, didn't see no firearm, didn't have a firearm.
Okay. That's all I got. That's all the questions I got.
Yes, sir.
So the domestic abuse issue, what was that about?
My baby mother, she was on probation for a murder charge with one of her baby daddies, and I ended up walking way to Willow at the thing where she do her classes at, and as I'm arriving there, I'm texting her. I'm like, I'm on the way. You know, I was like, I'm walking. I was like, she was like, all right. So she ended up calling one of our friend members named Patat to pick her up. But I see them picking up and I try to flag the car down, but I guess they didn't see me. But I called them and they answered and I was like, Patat, did you pick Elizabeth up? Well, Liz, I was calling her Liz. He was like, no, I don't have her, but I know he picked up. So I walked all the way back to Justin Street where I was standing at the address. And once I get there, I asked Patat, like, man, you didn't see me walking. So I ain't even know she was sitting in the truck with him. So when she was sitting in the truck, I ended up walking her to her. And what I did commit, I saw her on FaceTime with a guy that was in jail that she was recently in a relationship with. But the phone that she had in her hand, it was my iPhone that I paid for her though. So I grabbed the phone and I had some words with him. And I threw the phone in the truck, but she's putting her hand on me. So when she put her hands on me, I shoved off her and I started walking off. So she like, give me my effing phone, give my effing phone. I'm like, I don't have the phone. Go find your phone. I like the phone in the truck. So she ended up running in the house and come up with a knife. So I ran from her down the street. I called my brother and asked him where was he. He was like, he in Lafayette picking this girl up from work. I'm like, can y'all pick me up because Liz tripping again? So they picked me up and I shot to New Iberia. Once I shot to New Iberia, her mother then was calling me. She was like, son, I don't know what's going on, but can you bring the phone back? I'm like, Miss Demetra, I don't have the phone. So I explained to her what happened. And so it's like, Liz, if you're doing that, that's messed up because Jamal is a good guy or whatever. And, you know, like y'all shouldn't be arguing about no phone, but we is trying to find a phone. So she ended up finding the phone the next day in Patat truck, but she already had called the police and said what she said.
All right, I got it. All right, I think we are prepared to vote, Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, I'm glad to vote. Mr. Collins, you know, the thing about it is you're on supervision, you've been on supervision, you knew you had pending charges. You claim you went to try to take care of them, but it didn't happen. So then when the cops come for the other thing, you take off and run. They had to tase you. So I find you in violation of conditions. I think you had a firearm personally. I mean, nobody hides a firearm in their shed that's not locked. I mean, that's just not too smart anywhere. So I find you in violations of conditions number 3, 4, and 6. And my vote today is to revoke.
Mr. Prater.
Concur, revoke for the same reasons.
Mr. Collins, I do agree. Based on our discussion today, I also find you guilty of violations of condition number 3, 4, and 6. So my vote today is to revoke you for. Good luck to you, sir. That concludes our business in Lafayette. We're going to sign off at 10:01.
All right, thank you.
You know, Richard has in the notes here, he just has one sentence. Playing stupid just convinces the board you're stupid. And, you know, frankly, I was kind of, it was intriguing to me to see how the sheriff drilled down into the facts and had the info and like asked him about it. He's like, how big was the storage shed? Because, you know, you're hiding in there and they find a Glock under a piece of plastic on the floor. So it's not your Glock. And it's, you know, he's like, well, I requested DNA. They didn't read me my Miranda rights, which, you know, it's interesting. I've seen that before in interrogations where the person's not read their Miranda rights at the moment of arrest, but that's not going to be the magical card. They can just read it to you before questioning. And I mean, it's just a weird, you know, I don't know what initial crimes he's in for. We don't have that information, how much time he's backing, but can you imagine, again, it's like the thing with the revocations, before you start to feel bad for someone, first of all, do you believe his story? Do you believe that it wasn't his gun? Do you believe that I mean, can you imagine, here he is, a convicted convict out on parole, and he's in a situation where he gets tased by police and he has a loaded Glock on him. It's like 1 second away, one bad move away from him, from the worst case scenario happening to him. And it could have happened. You hear about it all the time. And somehow he's running and he gets into this room and now he's in there and it's like, wow, what am I going to do? And he hides the Glock in the best place he can hide it, on the floor underneath a piece of plastic. And then it's like, oh, I don't know how that got. That's not mine. If it wasn't his, that is just some really bad luck picking that place to hide, isn't it? I just, of course, I don't buy it. And it's like you're out on parole. Why are you? You know, I guess he's lucky that the charges were dropped. And again, if you're, well, if the charges are dropped, how can be held responsible? And it comes right back to the DAs. They're not gonna waste their resources on getting a new conviction when they know that the guy is back in time and that the parole board's going to do their job. That's the process of it. It still is in this case, I would say it's in his best interest to let them drop the charges. And if he were to have pled to any lesser offense, to do that, because come on, he's not going to win that one. Maybe if they didn't do DNA on it and somehow he got a feisty defense attorney to show all the flaws in their investigation or lack thereof, could they get a jury to feel a certain way about something? Maybe. But still a coin flip. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents. We've been here for a little bit of a while. Thank you, Sir Richard, for picking out the hearings. There were a bunch of good ones today for those of you who keep tabs on it. When I say good ones, I mean some ones that I really want to bring to you. I decided to go with the revocation routes, but there are some really intense parole hearings and some blasts of the past parole hearings that I'll probably bring to you tomorrow. So with that, I'll let you go, but do subscribe. Help us reach 100,000.
Kind of like one, but then another thing concerns me is we got video of you handcuffing this guy in the basement, was it?
No, sir, it wasn't in the basement. No, sir.
Okay, but you're
It was-
handcuffing him around a pole.
It was inside of the shop, and it wasn't like what it appears, because he was actually the one wanting to be handcuffed, and excuse me, and he had the key.